These are the voices that make Missouri work. This is Profiles from the Heartlander. Well, Will, I appreciate you coming in today. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me as well.
We are entering a really interesting season for elections, particularly in the state of Missouri, because we're talking about a Senate race, we're talking about a gubernatorial race, but also a couple of really high-profile amendment issues. There's legalized sports betting that's going to be on the ballot, but which is not why you're here.
No,
because you are the Midwest Regional Coordinator for Students for Life, and that issue, why you're here today, is to speak to another amendment for Missourians, is that Amendment number 3 on Missouri's Constitution. This would effectively enshrine abortion in Missouri's Constitution. It's in reaction to, of course, as we know, what was, after Roe versus Wade was overturned at the federal level, Missouri and the governor of Missouri taking action on abortion in Missouri. So, having said all that, I guess let's start at the beginning. Can you talk to me about what the governor of Missouri did originally after Roe versus Wade was overturned?
Absolutely. So what happened was, after Roe v. Wade was overturned, which I was actually there in 2022. That's probably one of my greatest moments I've had with Students for Life, was having the opportunity to be at the Supreme Court with Kristen Hawkins to hear the announcement of the overturning of Roe v. Wade. But in 2019, it actually starts then, the state of Missouri had a trigger law that was established that would immediately outlaw abortions throughout all 9 months, with the rare case of life of the mother. And of course, as soon as Roe v. Wade was overturned, the governor was able to reestablish that law and made it get the law of the land in the state of Missouri.
Were you surprised? I must confess, I'm pro-life, to be clear, but I must confess I was surprised to see the swift nature. In fact, I think Mike Parson was the first governor in the country to react to Roe versus Wade being overturned, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I'd say he was right up there with being the first governor. I wasn't surprised one bit. I had the opportunity to start getting prepared while I was out there. I was serving as the Missouri State Captain for Students for Life, and so I did a lot of pro-life legislation work, ensuring our legislators in Jefferson City were upholding pro-life values with all the laws they were making, and working with the governor to make sure that stuff was happening. And I wasn't surprised at all, especially with the overturning of Roe v. Wade. We saw so many different organizations that just weren't quite confident in hearing like Roe actually being overturned. I was evidently. This has been a movement from my family since the 1950s and 60s, even before Roe was a thing. So I was very confident that once I heard this court case, I knew which Supreme Court justices we had, and I was fully confident that this was going to happen.
Before we get into some of the meat and potato issues surrounding this discussion, Students for Life, generally, I think people should know what it is. We were particularly interested in talking to you because young people are not often associated with being pro-life. Often, politically, you see young people chanting for what is called choice, or the pro-abortion side. So we were uniquely interested in Students for Life. Talk to us about the organization and your involvement.
Absolutely. So Students for Life itself became an official organization back in 2006. And back then we only had about 100 groups. Today, we are seeing around 1,500 groups stretching from not just campuses on colleges, but we also have middle school groups, high school groups, and even med and log programs as well with with Students for Life. And then we have various different organizations with our groups that we have worked with for leaders, student leaders, whether that be our Students for Life Action Captains, our Stand With You initiative, which is how we work to provide resources for mothers that are needed and help them get connected with the pregnancy resource centers. And also we have our, we also have a called initiative, which helps our Christian fellowship as well. Because with Students for Life, a lot of times we try to take a more scientific and philosophical look, but obviously we recognize how important the religious values that are in this movement as well. So we also work to promote Christian ideas.
That's really intriguing you say that. I think a lot of people approach this as strictly an issue of faith, and while for Christians and believers I know that it is, you say there are more cases to be made outside of even faith-based concerns. Talk about that.
So there's obviously the fact that so in the state of Nebraska we have the 12-week ban. So a baby can actually start feeling pain in the womb at 12 weeks. So right at that 12-week ban, that's when a baby starts feeling pain. So they have it 11 weeks and 6 days is what their cutoff is. In the state of Iowa, we have a heartbeat ban, which is 6 weeks. So obviously, most abortions take place right around that time. So we're able to save so many lives because these lives are, from the moment of conception, every biologist that you talk to, egg, sperm combined, you have an individual that is complete and unique.
That's a life. So the 4-state area, Missouri has an almost total ban with exception of rape?
Life in the mother.
Life of the mother.
Yep.
Kansas
has a 21 week, 6 weekday ban.
Kansas is oddly considered one of the more lenient states on abortion, aren't
Yes. Yeah, I said Kansas is right up there with the same abortion laws, almost with Illinois.
Why?
It's so there's an interesting book I have yet to read, but I always see it everywhere I go. It's What's the Matter with Kansas?
Yes.
With Kansas, it's very interesting what happened there with the Value in Both Amendment. We had a issue where we had some laws on the books before Roe was overturned. They became trigger laws, but then the Supreme Court all of a sudden found out, hey, you can't actually have these laws on the book because you have to go through a process to get a constitutional amendment to actually have this on lock.
It's really interesting because, and you can confirm this because this is the work you do full-time, I'm sure. I have heard that since Roe versus Wade was sent back to the state, overturned, and the issue sent back to the states, sadly, to me, I've heard that abortions have increased. There's this notion that women can't get access to abortions, but in fact they have increased. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, so it's obviously an over glorification that we see, especially right now. Unfortunately, with the DNC happening in Chicago, they're openly endorsing Planned Parenthood to have abortions on the street in Chicago right now. Yesterday, the Planned Parenthood was able to say that they performed 25 abortions, and they're doing these for free, as well as vasectomies on the grounds at the DNC of all places. So it's obviously not a hidden fact that these are increasing. They're trying to promote these as much as they can, so Planned Parenthood and other abortion vendors can make as much money as they can.
And an abortion, by definition, it's interesting because I think many think it's something where you physically go in and something surgical happens, but that's not necessarily true. We're now talking about even prescription pills through the mail.
Yes. Yeah, so that's something that is obviously also taking huge place right now. It's highlighted in the movie Unplanned, if you've ever seen that, where the Abigail takes a 2-pill concoction. The first one is to kill the child, and the second one is to evacuate the child from by a form of miscarriage. And by doing that, it can also cause severe bleeding, hemorrhaging, and just lifelong effects that could be deadly to a woman as well.
So you mentioned the Democrats' convention, and as you and I sit and talk and record this, the Democrats are having their convention. They've been handing out, as I understand it, that pill. Mm-hmm. Is it Plan B or something like that? Is that what they're claiming is they're doing live there in Chicago?
The pill that they're trying to pass out is mifepristone, which is the first part pill that will kill the child, and then they take another pill that will eventually remove the child through miscarriage and release it from the woman's body. And when that happens, they tell you, hey, don't look in the toilet when you're sitting there, just flush it. And then that's it. Since it's not in a facility, no doctor is held responsible because it's the woman doing it. Mm-hmm. And that's the most dangerous thing is obviously we are trying to put a stop to in-house abortions as well, but the fact that these doctors are just blatantly out there not caring and just saying, oh, do it yourself, it'll be fine, but not following up with these women is the most dangerous thing.
It is true, though, that the Supreme Court, I believe, said they gave the green light in majority to that being available through the mail. True? Correct.
So what they did was, but it wasn't even necessarily that. It was a matter that the group that was taking up that lawsuit didn't have enough standing on there. So that's the issue with that there.
Okay, so really they didn't rule on the legality of the medication being sent through the mail. Mm-hmm. It was a technicality.
It was the party that was suing wasn't the right party
Didn't have
to be
standing.
actually, yeah.
Got it. So we get back to Amendment 3. Neighboring states, Illinois, Kansas, these neighboring states to Missouri clearly are states that women could travel to have an abortion if they chose, right?
Yes.
So it is not true. I mean, let's just tackle as a matter of fact. It is not true that women in Missouri could not get an abortion if they chose to.
That's correct. Yeah. So we actually just saw this last week. We had our National Sidewalk Day last Thursday, which was August 15th. For people that are watching this at a later date. But on August 15th, we were actually outside sidewalk counseling and also chalking in front of the Planned Parenthood in Overland Park, Kansas. And we actually had a woman in Missouri plates come up, and we asked her if she was there for an abortion, in which she said yes. And I pointed her to the PRC right across the street, where I told her, like, hey, like, they have resources that are able to help you out, get whatever you need, diapers, formula, anything like that will help you out with stuff like that. And also they offer new parenting classes as well. That's a big thing that a lot of people don't have, unfortunately, is the support of someone being able to help them out. And so that's why it's so important to promote pregnancy resource centers, especially in cities like Kansas City, where we are seeing, Kansas City, Kansas, where we're seeing people come from Missouri, we're seeing people come from Texas, Arkansas, other places like that. Also in St. Louis, Southern Illinois is a hotbed right now because they have a law there that allows college students. There's a college town down in Southern Illinois that allows college students to actually vote in that district, even though they don't actually live there. And there's now 3 Planned Parenthoods within Southern Illinois, which is a rural, commonly conservative area, had it not be for the college students there.
In terms of the abortions themselves, do you believe that Missouri has seen an uptick in them since there's been a near total ban on them?
I think so with Missouri, obviously Missouri has 0 right now as a net number
On the books,
yeah,
anyway,
on the books
legal,
anyway. Yes, so
illegal.
obviously there could be somebody going over to Kansas, getting the pills, and coming back. But from what I am seeing with the number is there's an enticement, especially in inner city communities, whether that be in St. Louis or in northern Kansas City. This is where Planned Parenthood is targeting these lower income neighborhoods that are also like minority neighborhoods. This has always been their target, especially with Margaret Sanger wanting to make Planned Parenthood a Genesis program. And this has always been their target demographic, and they're still currently working there.
It is true or untrue, this is something you hear a lot, that because of Missouri's law at present, women would be jailed if they had an abortion.
That is untrue. With that, it is a felony for the person performing an abortion. Women would never get, under this law, the way it's set up right now, women would never get thrown in prison.
So if a woman traveled to Kansas or traveled to Southern Illinois to have the abortion, she's not going to come back to Missouri and be thrown in jail.
Correct. No, I say, and if that case happened, I talked to a woman today who expressed regret on having an abortion. And the fact is, we need to be able to help out these women because they felt no other option. Yeah. And because they didn't have the ability, they didn't have someone there to be a shoulder to cry on. They didn't have the pregnancy resource centers or didn't know about them specifically to get that help.
This is what I hear often, that we, those of us who value life and really want to beat the idea of abortions being your first option, that we need to lead with compassion, that we need to express that there is help financially, in counseling, medically, because often women think, well, I'm all by myself and I can't afford to do this and I can't afford a doctor. There are, and I know this, even in the Kansas City area, I donate to some and give to some of our time, my wife and I do, to a crisis pregnancy center in the metropolitan area. Those exist, and maybe those of us who are pro-life don't do as good a job as we ought to of leading with that compassionate, helpful thing.
Yes.
Is that it?
So yeah, there's. I was just telling everybody about this earlier today. That there's a great quote from the Equal Rights Institute, and pardon me if I butcher it, but truthful, loving people are more effective and are heard more than unloving, truthful people. So yes, you can be blunt. Yes, you can share the facts with people, but that's not going to be able to way to win the hearts and minds of people. This is a grassroots movement that has been taking place like I said, in the 50s and 60s with my grandparents in the Chicagoland, great-grandparents in the Chicagoland area. This is something that has to be one, going to your neighbor, going to your friends, having these conversations and not trying to obviously start fights. That's the last thing we want as anybody. But this is a battle that is won through hearts and minds in a grassroots movement.
So with Amendment 3, what this does effectively is codify forever into law abortion in the state of Missouri. Is that about right?
Yes.
Specifics of it, do you know, or is it just that simple?
So that's exactly it. So it would allow exactly that. It would allow the codification throughout all 9 months, regardless of
Limitless.
Limitless, yes, exactly.
So this amendment, just so we're clear, if Amendment 3 passes, this would enshrine in Missouri's Constitution limitless abortion.
Correct. So there's the stipulation of fetal viability by a healthcare professional. That healthcare professional is obviously going to be a paid Planned Parenthood worker who's going to get paid to perform that abortion. So they're going to say, oh, it's not viable yet. So you can have an abortion in the state of Missouri. Should Amendment 3 pass, you can have it literally on the day of birth. You can be in the hospital. It's like, nope, I don't want this child anymore.
Wow.
And perform this abortion.
That's pretty radical. I mean, even for people that are on the left and are maybe even pro-life. As I understand it, even people that are pro-choice, most surveyed are not that radical.
Correct. And so that's something we've actually, we had some students that we went to the Missouri State Fair and we were having conversations with people, encouraging them to vote no on Amendment 3. And we had we had some students actually go out, stand outside the Democrat tent and explain what Amendment 3 actually considered. And so a lot of Democrats that claim to be pro-choice, there's a limit on this. It's like, oh, I only believe in 16 weeks. Well, that's still 4 months. That's extreme radical for me. I'm, obviously a protection at conception guy. But even they recognize all 9 months is way too extreme for anything.
This is important. You're saying that even pro-abortion folks, people that want women to have the ability to have abortion, most of them have limits, and they're not aware that Amendment 3 is limitless.
Correct. And it's very tricky wording, as most times that you'll see. But this amendment that was put forth by Planned Parenthood and the ACLU and other pro-choice, pro-abortion advocates, they trickily worded this to be exactly like this. So we're trying to prevent exactly what happened in Ohio right now with their limitless abortion ban.
So Missouri would go effectively, if I'm following here with you, Missouri would go from a state that doesn't allow abortion to becoming one of the most radically tolerant of abortion states in the union.
Yep.
Overnight.
I say putting that over some, obviously we're seeing this across 8 other states as well here in the union. Montana being the most recent one. As of last night, they actually got they had their signatures certified on their ballot initiative. Hit it very quietly at 11 o'clock at night that's when the news broke, 11 o'clock Central. So it's very under wraps, especially up there, saying like, oh, we're just going to push this onto the ballot. But we can't just let it be a silent issue, and we actually have to be out there advocating, saying, hey, this is exactly what it says. And we are working to do this in all the states that have ballot initiatives right now. We're working on printing out the wording for all the ballot initiatives, having red lines around it and saying, hey, this is actually what this means.
Ron DeSantis, I know, I've been reading, has been crisscrossing Florida, actively campaigning against an amendment similar down there.
Yeah, so that's Amendment 4. Governor DeSantis has been working. He actually gave us a big shout out at a rally recently that he had down there, Students for Life Action, Students for Life America, just based off the work that we're doing down there. So we're working tirelessly in Florida. We're working tirelessly in Missouri, Nebraska, Montana, possibly even Arkansas. We'll see how that goes down there as well.
A lot of these states have races, Senate races, governor's races. Do you think that's coincidental?
I don't. Even like states that don't have these ballot initiatives, abortion is on the ballot regardless. So it is important to look into your legislators, who is going to be the most pro-life. Legislators, presidential nominations, and even some cases, judges as well is an important thing to look at as well.
So in closing, I'd just ask you, as people talk about Amendment 3, what should they know? I guess most importantly, what I've learned here today is, if people aren't aware, a yes vote is limitless abortion.
Yeah. I said that's the big thing right there. A yes vote is limitless abortion. So it's.
I mean, that's stunning. And if it was said that clearly, do you think that's an immediate loser for the issue?
Oh, I absolutely do. I say that was the original wording when this was written by Jay Ashcroft. When it was originally worded, it was written as this will allow for the killing of innocent babies. The Supreme Court didn't approve that wording, and they had to go back and basically gave the wording away to Planned Parenthood and the ACLU to give them what they wanted.
Wow. And if it passes, is it instant? Is that your understanding?
I'm not sure. I believe it's on the effective immediate signing of the governor. So depending on who wins the governorship, as soon as that pen hits the paper, I believe it goes into effect.
And the governor has to sign it. I mean, it's not an option, is it?
The governor doesn't have to sign, but after a certain amount of days, it goes into effect that way.
I see, even if he doesn't, because it's the people have kind of voted it in.
Yeah.
And there is really no way to overturn it unless there's another signature drive to amend the Constitution again.
Yep. I say that's the big kicker there. It's going to be extremely difficult. I mean, we saw a 50-year battle from 1973 with Roe v. Wade in 2022. That's how long it took us to overturn it.
Do you think that with a proper education campaign, this could be defeated, Amendment 3, or do you think the public wins are just at their back?
I think it has to be a severe public information campaign. That was the biggest loss in Ohio last year with the election. They weren't very organized. They only put ads out 2 weeks before the election, and by that time, a lot of people, they also had early ballot voting in Ohio, so people were able to already vote before the information campaign already started.
And so again, you have evidence that if people were introduced to what this really does, even if they're pro-abortion to some extent, they would be turned off by it being limitless.
Yes.
So that's the strategy of the campaign, is to educate people that way.
I say that's exactly what it is. And so something we heard from some students that we were talking to, when they went to go talk to people collecting the ballot signatures themselves, I heard this in Nebraska. Even we actually have a student that works with us now up at our Creighton group. They were telling her that, this is to raise teachers' salaries. So there's a huge mislead. People don't know what they're even gathering signatures for.
Finally, Will, I'll ask you this. If people want to get involved with helping Message, maybe Students for Life or other organizations, do you recommend people go somewhere in particular?
Yeah, absolutely. So Students for Life, we're having deployments Students for Life Action, our C4 is doing deployments all across the country right now, where you can get involved. These are paid opportunities to go door knock. We're going to have one here in Missouri in St. Charles in October, and the other one that I will be at is in Kearney, Nebraska. That'll be here in the end of September.
And people can find you online.
Yep, and so they can check out those deployments. If they're in that area where we're going to be having one, they can check out studentsforlifeaction.org/deployments.
Will, we appreciate your time. Amendment 3, everyone should be up on what's going on in Missouri this fall. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chris. I appreciate you having me here.